Hello, Las Vegas. Welcome to Live Unleashed. I'm your host, Kevin Lepine. We have a great show this afternoon. We have Tawney Noreen, also known as Tawney Bubbles, in the studio. She's going to be joining us in a little while. We're going to be talking about her amazing life and amazing career. The bottom of the hour, of course, we will be joined by William Arendell from New Orleans. We'll not only be talking about different topics today about living unleashed, but he's also going to be talking a little bit about sleep apnea and how you can find ways to improve your own sleeping patterns, because Lord knows it's hard to have a really good day after a bad night's sleep. Well, here at Live Unleashed, one of the things that we like to do at the beginning of the show is to kind of talk about little ideas and things that you can do to really focus your life and allow yourself to drop negative ideas and negative thoughts. And one of the things that holds us back sometimes is our own natural limitations, or what we perceive our natural limitations to be. One of the best things that we can do is to try and improve on a day-to-day basis. And one of the main tricks is to figure out, what does that improvement mean? A lot of times we'll look towards others and we will compare ourselves by saying, well, I'm not as good as this person, or I can't do what this person's doing, or at least I'm better than this other person. When those are all false ways to judge your own value and your own goals. You have your own goal path. You have the things that you want to achieve. You have the things that you want to succeed at. Just because you're on one certain path and you have a dream doesn't mean it's shared by other people. So comparing your dream, your goals, and your abilities to others can sometimes just be a way to set ourselves up for failure and allow ourselves to not take that next step to what we want to do. One of the best things that you can do is you can look at what you're doing and try to figure out the answer to one of the biggest questions is, what can I do tomorrow to be better than I was yesterday? Where are you now? What are you working on? What is a way that you can grow a skill in order to reach another level? Throughout my own career and my own life, getting the show here in Las Vegas, of course, I've talked about many times, was a dream come true for me. But it wasn't a dream that happened overnight. And it wasn't a dream that happened because I looked at somebody else and went, I want that, or I have to be better than that. The way the dream came about was when I went, what do I need to be to be better tomorrow? And it was everything from looking at, when did I get to my office? What did I do when I sat down? What could I do to effectively use my time better? And it's not about changing your entire life in the span of one day and trying to fix everything and grow to do everything in one day. It's about just looking at one step. And how do I achieve this one step in order to get to another step the next time? You can never climb an entire mountain in one giant leap. You've got to climb it step by step, inch by inch. And the goal is not self-perfection, but continual self-growth, self-improvement. Just trying to look at what you're doing right now and looking at, where is your dream leading? Where's the next part of your dream going to? Are you reaching towards your short-term goal, your mid-term goal, your long-term goal? And what can you do tomorrow just to improve yourself in a little way, whether it's using time more effectively, whether it's reaching out to a mentor, whether it is finding a place to learn and grow, or even just a place to practice, or even reaching out to somebody on a personal or spiritual level, just to grow yourself one step today, to be stronger and be more prepared for where you want to be tomorrow. And that eventually leads into a very, very strong topic, which is, how can you be the very best at what you are and the very best at what you're doing? When we strive to make ourselves the best that we can be at whatever we do, as soon as we get seen as that specialist, not even in other people's eyes, but in our own eyes, once we realize that we can accomplish one thing and grow and do it to the best of our abilities, our confidence level rises, our desire to do more rises, our ability to reach out and take that next step. You get enthused, and that enthusiasm becomes contagious, all just by doing one little thing a day just to try and step up and be better than you were yesterday. We're going to take a really short commercial break. When we come back, we have Tawney Noreen, Tawney Bubbles here in the studio. We've got an amazing, amazing show to talk about. We'll talk to you in 2 minutes. This is Kevin Lepine with Live Unleashed every Tuesday from 3 to 4 p.m. Come and join us for an hour of learning how to live your life unleashed, free from negativity. Learn about local events that are happening, hear interviews with local celebrities, as well as how people have accomplished their dreams and have left behind negative behavior to live the life they want to live. Every Tuesday from 3 to 4 p.m., join me and therapist William Arendell for an hour of Living Unleashed.
Monday Mayhem is back at Gene Woods Racing Experience Go-Kart Track. The stakes are higher than ever, and the winner takes all if you've got what it takes. The winner will get to race a real Thunder Roadster at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway in an actual race. So be there every Monday. First race starts at 7. Come early to register. We are located at 121 East Sunset Road at the Sports Center, across from McCarran Airport. For more information, call us at 702-270-8100. That's 702-270-8100. You can visit us on Facebook, or you can go to our website at racingexperiencelv.com. Once you race here, you won't go anywhere else. Monday Mayhem is back.
Hello, Las Vegas from Hypnosis Unleashed. All Las Vegas locals get half off every night at the show, Tuesday through Sunday, 8 p.m. Come and join us for Las Vegas's wildest hypnosis show. Watch your friends get turned into rock stars, watch them do the craziest things, or come and be hypnotized yourself. This show has won all the awards here in Las Vegas, and we want to show you why. Come join us every Tuesday through Sunday night. VegasHypnosisShow.com for more details. That's VegasHypnosisShow.com. Welcome back to Live Unleashed. I'm your host, Kevin Lepine. Thank you so much for letting me into your radio. You're listening to us on KLAV 1230 AM here in Las Vegas and worldwide on the web, and I appreciate you taking the time to join us this afternoon. Here in the studio, we have a dear friend of mine here in Las Vegas who's actually just an amazing person. It's going to be very, very difficult for me to describe what she does accurately. To say that she does balloon art, I think puts an image in people's minds that is at such a minimum level for the maximum career that she has created. We're actually going to be talking a lot in visuals, so if you want to follow along, if you have the opportunity, her website is mymomthinksimspecial.com. Please welcome Tawney Bubbles. Tawney, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, it's going to be hard for us to describe this because what you do is so visual, but...
Visual is always great for radio.
Yeah, it is. And I have purposely not put like the live web component on because it kind of blew my mind a few years ago, and all of a sudden you had to start dressing for radio, and that was never really my goal. But all right, so you work with balloon art. And I think immediately everybody's first vision is, okay, she makes balloon poodles.
Yeah, she makes dogs and swords.
Yeah. Let me just go to the highlight, then we're going to back up and start over. Would you just quickly describe two of like the biggest events that you've done with what you do with balloons?
Sure, absolutely. There was a fabulous event that I was part of, that I was lucky enough to be a part of, called Balloon Manor. And it was a haunted house that we made out of balloons as a fundraiser for a cancer foundation. It was a 16-room house. There were about 16 designers that were creating the monsters, the actual house. We raised an enormous amount of money. We were actually a very successful charity for a while, which was fantastic. And I was lucky enough to be a part of that. And I think one of my favorite projects were some of the ones in Hong Kong where I got to do a balloon fashion show where several models were dressed in balloon dresses, and then there was a whole catwalk event with several celebrities from China that I had no idea who were.
And what we're talking about here now, and once again, mymomthinksimspecial.com.
Yes, correct.
we're not talking like you put balloons on a dress. We're talking about what would be the equivalent of an entire evening gown.
Yes,
made out of balloons. And also the White House.
Yes, I've worked at the White House twice, which was a lot of fun. They fed us. We got to make balloons for a lot of very important people and their kids. And we had a really good time. It was a really enjoyable event.
Including, I believe, a letter that you received for making a very, very specific balloon.
I did. I made, at the time, this was under the Bush administration, and Little Bush was a cartoon on television on Comedy Central, and I made a Little Bush, which I was then told I was...
Out of balloons.
Yes, out of balloons. Yes. Out of balloons, which I was then told I was not actually allowed to hand to the president.
as they didn't want that press opportunity of seeing the president walking around with a little balloon version of himself.
Yes.
Right.
I was also told at the very beginning of the event that we were not to put a hat on the president.
But he did, in fact, get
he
the
get the balloon, and I got a personalized letter thanking me for his little miniature hymn.
And now we're gonna step this back. 'Cause, I mean, now we're talking about somebody here who gets flown around the world, does amazing charity events, gets invited to work at the White House. You don't start there, of course. So much like. I'm sure you heard from many people in your life. Let's just start off with the question of, so you want to get into making balloons?
Well, I actually started at a catering company years ago when I was about 17. And I was hired basically to make dogs and swords that somebody at the company actually taught me how to make. Very, very simple stuff. And there was an event I did where there was another clown who was also making balloons, but his were definitely better than mine. And I had a very large line of kids who were all asking me to make the same things, which I could not. And as it turns out, a 5-year-old is not afraid to tell you you suck. So after being berated for an entire afternoon, I went to the library like that night, checked out every single book I could find on balloon animals from the library, and spent like the next 7 days just learning as much as I could. I don't think I stopped, like, other than to sleep and eat for a good chunk of time. And later on, I moved to Chicago, and I started doing balloons out there. And I think at the time, I was making something like maybe $200 a week, and like my rent was around $600. So it's, the kind of thing that you can do at 19. But I couldn't afford to buy books on balloons, and they didn't really have a great selection out there at the time on balloon characters in their library. So I would go to the bookstore and I would get these little like klutz books, which I would open up, memorize the picture, and then run home and like learn how to do it as quick as I could so I wouldn't forget it. And I did that for kind of a while. And when I came back to Las Vegas, I was going to college, and it was a great gig working in restaurants. And it paid my way through college. Like by the time I was done with school, I didn't have debt, which was phenomenal. And a really, really strong college job. Like, I don't think I could have asked for a better one. But by the time I was done with my degree, I realized I really didn't want to be doing that anymore. So I made this really weird life decision that I was going to make balloon animals for a living. But making that odd choice, like there's a lot to figure out, because this isn't necessarily a career that existed.
Now, while you were in college, what kind of gigs were you doing with the balloons at that point?
I was mostly doing restaurant and like birthday parties. So, and you usually see them. It's the person at Chili's that's running around making balloons. I did that for a long time, which is a great way to start out doing what I do. And then, Little Timmy's birthday party.
Well, now, so let's just talk about doing restaurant stuff. I mean, I've made it clear that I started off doing magic. One of the first entertainment companies that I ever started working for, they would have costume characters go out, and the costume characters all handed out balloons to balloon animals to the kids. But of course, when you're wearing the big mitts,
right.
So they needed somebody to make 500 balloon animals on a Thursday night, which was how I learned that. It was repetition. But so you're doing a restaurant, and let's say you're there for a couple hours a night. How many balloons are you going through in a night?
Oh my gosh. Now I'm kind of trying to track back in my brain. Because although I still am working at like party bars,
Right.
it's a little different than.
But back then, would you say you were going through like a bag of balloons a night?
Sure,
Yeah.
something like that.
So I mean,
somewhere around
you're still
there.
going through so you're making about 100 of them a night, to the point where you're not even thinking about making these anymore. It's just kind of muscle memory. They say dog, and all of a sudden you're halfway through it before.
Yeah. I mean, there used to be a joke with a friend of mine that, like, we would make something out of the wrong color because we were so muscle memoried into it that if you grabbed the wrong color, you weren't really looking at it anymore. And all of a sudden you'd look down and this little blue dog is actually green.
Right. But, and I mean, that's kind of how you perfect something, though, is
Oh, of course.
you're doing it over and over
Of course.
and over. So, okay, I don't want to use a very strange term that's coming to my mind, which is... So you want to do more than the average balloon artist, which I'm sure for a lot of listeners is not a sentence they're going to hear in their day-to-day life. But so you're doing the. All right, how about we say this? You're doing the regular kind of stuff that
Yeah,
balloon
the sort of
artists
industry
do.
standard
Yes.
balloons. Yeah.
You want to go up to another level. Why? What inspires you? What tells you that there's something more than what you're doing?
ADD and too much free time.
Okay.
But no, on a more serious note, though, I believe in the betterment of whatever it is that you do. And I don't mean that just in an artistic endeavor. I mean that in anything. Whatever your job is, and the average person works 8 hours a day. You sleep for about 8 hours a day. And then you have about 8 hours of whatever else. So basically, though, like half of your day at least, and that's not even counting lunch hour and getting to and from your job, that's half your day. That should be, you want to strive to make that as important as possible. And whether that means that you're delivering flowers or making art or picking up the trash, whatever it is, it's an integral part of our society and what we do. And I really honestly believe that. So I wanted to strive to be the best at what I was doing, both as an entertainer and as an artist. So when and I'm not the first person to like really take balloons to that next level. I've been lucky enough to be mentored and taught by some really, really phenomenal people around the world. And it became a matter of, I know I can make these little cartoon characters. I know I can make monkey on a palm tree, whatever it is that you've seen. I want to make something more. I want to create something. I want this odd form of art to actually be art, which was one of the things that was so appealing to me about doing the balloon dresses. Was it was something completely different. Like, you weren't trying to recreate somebody else's art. Say somebody wants a cartoon character that they've seen. It's great that that invokes that childhood memory, and I do love that. But to actually be able to create your own thing that's going to give somebody their own memory, I think is so much more important.
Now, you're talking about being passionate about whatever you do. And there's a truth to that. It doesn't matter what your job is. If this is going to be a big chunk of your life, if you can find an aspect of it to be passionate about,
Absolutely.
then that passion's going to lift you up. It's going to carry you. It's going to create a sense of enthusiasm that other people are going to see.
Absolutely.
And it's why you see those enthusiastic, those positive people tend to get the promotions first. They tend to reach that next level first, because that almost gets infectious. And when you're around people who are doing and who are achieving, it makes you want to do more and do better.
Absolutely.
So you find some mentors. And I think a lot of people get confused in this idea. Was it that a mentor just taught you how to twist a balloon differently?
No, absolutely not. And it's not to say that that wasn't an important part of it. The technique, of course, in anything you do is important. But at a certain point, once you've mastered the techniques, what I think becomes a much more important part of mentorship or education is now learning what to do with those techniques, how to create your own thing, how to create your own work of art.
And how to see kind of that blank canvas, that blank desk, that blank computer, that, uninflated balloon, and to start seeing that art out of it.
Yeah. And I have a friend, we were talking about this recently. We both worked on a project together where we were making the dresses. And he was really happy to see me do the exact same thing that he did. And we had this great little bonding moment of getting about maybe a quarter of the way through the dress and then stopping and stepping back and staring at it for, a good half hour or so, because you're kind of letting it talk to you, which sounds a little bit silly, but it's a certain amount of, okay, what's going to really make this look the best? What's going to make it into something that speaks to someone?
Well, it's that moment, and once again, I think this translates into any career where you are hired to do a task. So you put those first few pieces of that task together, and you've got that outline or that blueprint or that first chunk done, and this is where you then get to look at it and go, now how do I make this stand out? How do I make this mine?
Right.
As opposed to just, the same thing that's been seen over and over and over.
Right.
So what was your first, and once again, I know I'm using some strange terms here. It's just,
No,
it's weird to say it this way, but what was your first jump from standard balloon animal to strange creation that would later grow into what you're doing now?
It's really, really simple looking back on it because it was really, really early in my career. At that point, it's hard even because it was really the start is like my little high school job. But there's a kind of industry standard balloon that's like a ladybug. You've probably seen it. It's like a little ladybug bracelet. You can probably make it. And I kind of took that and doubled it up, and I made this little caterpillar thing. And it was the first balloon I created on my own. And it was obviously based off of something else, but I was really proud of that, and people hadn't seen it. So people got excited about it, and people were asking me to make that. So as simple as that is, it was still, I think, made out of one balloon. I may have added a second one into it. It was the first time that people were like, wow, that's really, really cool. And as well as I do, like, it's that artist thing that's crack to us. Like,
And I had one moment like that with a balloon, and it was a friend of mine who had received a balloon when he was a kid, and he never forgot this amazing mythical balloon that was just impossible and improbable. And I actually went about hunting down, what is this thing? It was the dog with the pregnant puppy, the dog with the little balloon inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was, and the day that I just walked over to his house, walked into his room, dropped it on his bed, and just turned around and walked out. His eyes, but I mean, it can be something that simple.
And it is.
It just makes you go click. And Lord knows, when I got into hypnosis, there were a bunch of different moments where all of a sudden I went from doing what was perceived as what hypnotists were supposed to do and going, well, wait, I see a door here now. What happens if I walk through that? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, oh, wait, now I'm in a room with 20 more doors and I have all these new options. Mm-hmm. And it grows exponentially. As soon as you start creating something, you don't want to stop. You want to keep finding new ways. So what was your first balloon dress? Because, and once again, mymomthinksimspecial.com is her website. You have got to see these dresses. It is impossible for me to describe these without looking at it.
Yeah, that is a little tricky. The first dress I made actually was it was for an event where we did a huge amount of decor for balloons. And one of the gals that was organizing it was a very good friend of mine who wanted a balloon dress because we had built this big giant barrel of grapes, like an Italian style barrel of grapes. And she wanted to wear a balloon dress and be jumping in the grapes. Sadly, nobody ever got pictures of her in it. I believe they existed, but she she did not find them as flattering as she wanted to. But she and I kind of love that because I do have a picture from that event of her kind of holding it up, which is one of my favorite pictures. She recently passed away from cancer, but there was something so fun about putting her into it for the first time, and then seeing how much joy she had in running around like with this childlike wonder, having such a blast. And from that point on, I'm like, that's what I want to do. Like, it got such an amazing reaction. Just this dress on a person. I mean, there was decor everywhere, all made out of balloons, which was amazing. And it was so great having people like have this intimate experience inside of it with playing with this girl wearing balloons, which is kind of one of the things that I liked about the dresses is that it's so personal.
And you did make one for my girlfriend for an event that she
did.
And Emily loved it. She kept that thing for as long as she could. I mean, they I think it lasted about almost 2 weeks.
Yeah.
She loved it. And then I do remember one time you needed a model, and this was when I was doing the show at another location. And one of my favorite lines, and I do want to ask you about this, because she told me about you interviewing her. And what she said was you asked her for her measurements, and she gave you her measurements, and then your next response was, okay, would you give me your measurements again, but please don't lie this time?
What I usually say now is I need your real measurements, not your audition measurements. Yeah, that was the girl that's in question lied about her measurements by a good, I think, 6 inches.
Ooh.
Yeah. So just to rewind real quick to explain how these dresses work, they're built around a mannequin and they're built to fit specifically a person. And they are like a one-time wear thing. So they're built around the mannequin with the back left open, and then the girl steps into it, and I actually sew her the rest of the way in, which is really hard to do, and they've lied by that much.
Because okay, so once again, we're trying to deal with people's imaginations here. So you're thinking balloons, well, they stretch, they're elastic, they're bendy. In this case, they're really tightly packed.
Yeah, they're very, very tightly woven.
Yeah. And at that point, they don't rip, they don't tear, they just explode.
Yes. Yeah. It's not like you can just suck it in with like an actual dress. Yeah. Where, I've inched those dresses in before, but it still fits, don't worry. But not really the same thing when you're dealing with something that's that fragile and breakable. And they might be a little more sturdy than you would think looking at them, but still, it's a balloon that does pop.
Now, what's the next dream gig for you? If you could do, if you got to pick what your next contract was.
I would actually really like to do something that's a little more museum style. So I would like to do some sort of a display that's a piece, as opposed to I love doing like the corporate work and the things that are entertainment, but I'm trying more recently to get into art that really speaks to something, that's not we're selling this to a corporation or a company or a specific event. It's something for everyone that everyone can come to, get their own interpretation of, and a little closer to, I guess not traditional art isn't exactly the right word because it's not really traditional, but something that's going to speak to the masses rather than a select group of people.
Now, you took this from literally nothing. You were taught something so very, very basic to get through an afternoon, and you grew and you advanced it and you turned it into an amazing career. If you could tell people, what is one thing you feel that people could do, even just 10 minutes a day in their day-to-day life, what is one thing that kept you moving forward, that kept you growing? What is one thing that you think people could do on a day-to-day basis that can help them achieve their dreams and goals?
Well, the biggest thing is making sure there is a goal. And you were kind of talking about it earlier in the segment about inching your way sort of towards it. Like the very step of taking 10 minutes and working on something, I think is kind of one of the most important things you can do. To be more specific, just do something, like anything. Anything is something. And I think that's what's so important.
Momentum builds momentum.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're gonna take a quick 2 or 3 minute break. We're gonna be back. William Arendell is gonna be joining us here. We're gonna be talking about this topic a little bit more. We're gonna be talking more with Tawney Bubbles. Her website again is mymomthinksimspecial.com. You really do need to check that out. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Hello, Las Vegas from Hypnosis Unleashed. All Las Vegas locals get half off every night at the show, Tuesday through Sunday, 8 p.m. Come and join us for Las Vegas's wildest hypnosis show. Watch your friends get turned into rock stars, watch them do the craziest things, or come and be hypnotized yourself. This show has won all the awards here in Las Vegas, and we want to show you why. Come join us every Tuesday through Sunday night. VegasHypnosisShow.com for more details. That's VegasHypnosisShow.com.
Monday Mayhem is back at Gene Woods Racing Experience Go-Kart Track. The stakes are higher than ever, and the winner takes all if you've got what it takes. The winner will get to race a real Thunder Roadster at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway in an actual race. So be there every Monday. First race starts at 7. Come early to register. We are located at 121 East Sunset Road at the Sports Center, across from McCarran Airport. For more information, call us at 702-270-8100. That's 702-270-8100. You can visit us on Facebook, or you can go to our website at racingexperiencelv.com. Once you race here, you won't go anywhere else. Monday Mayhem is back.
Hey, this is Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers for RAD. I'm here to remind you that drunk drivers are still a major killer of young adults in this country. So always choose a designated driver, and remember, music lives, you should too.
Getting born in the state of Mississippi, Papa was a copper and the mama was a hippie.
A public service message brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, RAD, the National Association of Broadcasters, and the Ad Council.
Hey, it's Roxy from the 702 Rock Show, right here at VegasAllNetRadio.com. Listen to my show every Friday, 4 to 5 p.m. to hear about local artists, musicians, fashion designers, and more right here in Las Vegas. So tune in every Friday, 4 to 5 p.m. to hear me, Michelle Roxy Davis, right here at VANR on the 702 Rock Show.
Welcome back to Live Unleashed. I'm your host, Kevin Lepine. Thank you so much for coming back with us. We're here in studio with Tawney Noreen, also known as Tawney Bubbles. Her website is mymomthinksimspecial.com. And we're now joined by my co-host, my best friend. Please welcome to the show, William Arendell. Hey, Will, how's it going?
Not bad. It's great to be here, and it's great to meet you, Tawney. I've heard you talk a lot about passion. And I think a lot of people sometimes start out with passion and they lose it along the way. I want to know if there's ever been a moment for you where you had the passion and then you kind of started to lose it and then you got it back.
Sure, absolutely. I think that happens to just about everybody. I find myself, the way of dealing with that is varying up a little bit what you do. So throughout my career, although it's always been balloons, I think I've found several different layers and levels of what I do. So talking about doing the restaurants when I was, a teenager and in college, I did burn out of doing that, and then started focusing more on birthday parties. And then, although I still really enjoy doing that, I started upping more what I do, finding the more artistic ways of creating what I do, I find little changes as well as big ones can really help bring back that passion and keep you interested in what it is that you do.
And another question is, how do you deal with, one of the reasons people kind of burn out is dealing with the public or dealing with the people that they deal with. And what are some of the ways you've used to kind of deal with those people and kind of move past that or kind of help yourself through dealing with some very tough customers?
I think the biggest thing in dealing with a difficult person is trying to understand why it is they're being difficult. From time to time, you're going to find somebody that you're just not going to get along with, and that happens in life. But for the most part, I think you can really help brighten the day of somebody who is being difficult. And once you kind of find a way of doing that, just even if that's just by being cheerful and insisting on your own happiness inside that difficult situation, happiness can definitely be an infectious thing. So I know personally I have dealt with a difficult customer, and by just maintaining my own need to be positive and keep that positivity going, that has more often than not set them in a place where they felt more confident about me. And I think that's a really big thing, because as long as the customer feels confident in what you do, they become a lot more lax and willing to let you do what it is that you have spent your life creating and doing.
Which actually comes into a question that I don't think I've asked anybody yet, but I think every profession has this. So what are the 2 or 3 questions you get asked every night, and how do you deal with answering those?
Where's the bathroom? Now, how did you get started, I think, is the biggest question, because it is such a weird job. Or how do you learn? I usually tell people I learned in prison. Obviously, I did not. Let's see. How did you learn? When did you get started? And probably how many balloons do you go through in a day? And at this point, I know we were talking about it was probably closer to 100 back then. I can go through as many as 600 to 700 in a day now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. I know. Do your hands hurt? That's the big one. And yes. Also, they're no longer hands; they're basically just latex-coated calluses.
Or I'm sure you get the question of, do those ever pop on you?
Oh yeah. I've never popped a balloon in my life. Totally true.
Yeah, I think that finding ways to answer those questions in a fun way, because everybody gets those questions.
Yeah.
My favorite personal question while I'm at dinner eating is, do you think I'm an addict? And that usually is a game changer as to how the dinner conversation is going to go for the next 10 minutes.
See if this person is on your speed or not.
Yeah. And, the odds are if they're asking the question, they're not. The person that turns away from the table or doesn't want to hear the conversation might be.
Or the question of, so are you like doing therapy to me right now?
and usually answer that with a dead straight face of yes, I am. and coming up with fun ways of dealing, because every profession has these things that kind of pull you down and grate on you. I was talking with a friend who was a doctor, and he said, I never thought I would get yelled at for saving someone's life.
Yeah.
It's not always how you intend it to be. So looking at that vision, Tawney, that you had of a little kid of what this would be like and what it is now, what do you think the biggest differences are?
Well, first of all, when I started doing this at around 17, I had no idea I was going to be doing this now. I was really pretty convinced I was going to be a rock star. So,
what is your degree in?
Oh, my degree is in stage management.
Okay.
So for anybody who doesn't know what that is, that's basically the person that's running things backstage, which
otherwise known as the only person in the theater who actually makes money.
Yeah, often. They're also the person that get the brunt of everything. Anytime something goes right and there's a good production, it's because of the actors and the director. Anytime anything goes wrong, it's the fault of the stage manager.
Right.
So while I really did enjoy the actual work of stage management, I did not particularly care for actors.
So what is the difference from when you started doing balloons to now? What's the difference in the vision and the feel?
I mean, at the time, I think I was when I first became, because I started out as a clown. I have retired the big shoes now, but I remember thinking like, "Ooh, a clown! That's awesome! I'm totally going to be the prom queen because of this," which did not happen. But I think I had pretty superficial goals about it when I was younger. It was, oh, this is a really fun way to make a living right now. It certainly had not put itself into the category of, this is my dream job. So I, in a weird way, kind of went backwards from, I think, the average person who has a dream and then goes after it. I kind of wound up in something that I accidentally really fell in love with, and then had to set kind of a different dream of how to really turn this into a career and a living.
Well, then let me just change one of the parameters then. So let's go from the middle of your career to just before you started breaking out into doing these much bigger events, the fashion shows, the stuff like that. Just before you got there to where you are now, what's the difference in how you looked at it then and how you look at it now?
I think the biggest difference would probably be, at the time I was looking at recreating things. So if I was trying to create a sculpture, I would want something that had already been built. So I saw a really pretty tree or something, like, that's a weird example, but I would see a tree and go, oh, that's a really pretty tree. I'm going to try to recreate that. Versus now, which is, okay, what can I, going on this weird tree example I've just said, how can I take that and twist it into something that's really different?
So almost
that's going to make a statement.
So almost the difference between mimicry and originality.
Yes.
Which I think it, and Will, you can talk about this from your end too, because you've worked with a lot of different therapists. I think there's a truth to that in every profession. We all kind of start off mimicking something, but then we become truly successful when we start coming up with our own original ways and our own solid foundations.
Yeah, I really think professionalism is kind of intuition and knowledge mediated by past experience. And I think that I think everybody starts out repeating things. Kids start out when they're playing musical instruments, learning to play. And then all of a sudden, it was like you said before, Kev, that this one door opens. Well, I can do this like this. I really also think that it comes down to the teachers and mentors you had, too. I can think of my own life as a musician early on, and the people I had around me were all writing songs, and I knew other people who had teachers and stuff, and they weren't writing songs. They were just learning other people's stuff. And I think when you have that encouragement early on to break the mold, to do something different, and you're around people who are doing it, and people are asking you questions that pull you in a different direction, I think that really starts to set that apart, of people who teach you how to be creative and how to let your mind wander. And then I think it takes another level of, when you fail at something, somebody pointing out something you did well in that failure, even if it's yourself, but a lot of times it's another person. Someone pointing out something well you did in there and to try again. And I think what happens a lot of times with kids is we just say you passed or you failed, or sometimes we say you passed when didn't even come close. And so it's that right amount of feedback, I think, that you get, and then you learn to give yourself, that takes people to the next level.
Now, I'm going to sidetrack you on two directions. And the first direction I want to sidetrack you on is it French Quarter Fest right now?
It will be next weekend.
Okay, gotcha. It's next weekend.
It's coming up weekend.
Yeah,
it's coming up weekend.
Hands down, one of my favorite weeks in New Orleans. That's the one time that I truly regret not being down there. Now,
without a doubt.
Yeah, and you know, because people talk about like Jazz Fest, which is just this amazing collection of national performers. I mean, just an amazing bill. They'll talk about Mardi Gras, which is an amazing party, but I don't think anybody really knows the joys that is French Quarter Fest, which is all just the local bands just setting up all over the French Quarter, and you just get the greatest music that if you don't live in New Orleans, you've never heard of, but you'll fall in love with.
And it's actually more stages than Jazz Fest, and it's free. It is completely free. It's probably my favorite festival of the year. And I'm sad I'm going to miss a little bit of it due to a training I'm going to this weekend. But it's really an amazing festival, and it's really starting to get some national recognition. 2 years ago, I had friends flying from Europe to see it, and then they actually had a couple of jazz bands from Japan coming into play. But most of it, you are exactly right, is completely local musicians from really around Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and a little bit from Texas. And it's probably one of the most amazing festivals, and it is the largest free festival in the South.
Now now it's time to lead into, and then boy, this is a lousy segue. Now it's time to lead into something completely different. You and I have been talking about this, and there's something that we've wanted to do, and that's that you've wanted to take one topic a week and really kind of get a little bit in depth with it. So go for it. What do we do? What are you bringing up this week?
What I wanted to talk about was, we talk a lot about what you can do to help yourself and what you can do to bring things to the next level. And what I spend a lot of my time with people is to really remove some of the roadblocks that have kept them from getting to the next level. And there's some medical issues, some psychological issues out there, even some genetic issues that, we're saying, step up to your passion, and people are like, I don't have a passion, or I'd really love to do that, but I don't have the energy to do that. This all sounds great, but I can't hold a thought long enough to do that. So I wanted to just spend a little bit of time each week just covering some topics that maybe people are suffering from out there that have kept them from their passion. The first one is something that 45 million Americans suffer with, and yet it is so underdiagnosed. I get people showing up when in my office, and maybe they have a diagnosis of ADD, anxiety, depression, or they might say they just don't have enough energy. And there is a really treatable illness out there called sleep apnea, and it is very treatable. And I refer to it, when I figure it out that people have it, I refer to it sometimes as the miracle cure, because especially if it's the right kind of sleep apnea, you can go to a doctor, get treated, and feel better very, very quickly. The symptoms of sleep apnea are snoring. Now, it's not just snoring. It needs to be some of these other things. There is always there's always snoring and sleep apnea, but sleep apnea is not always equaled by snoring doesn't always equal sleep apnea. So it's gasping for air in the middle of the night, and I'm talking about obstructive sleep apnea. And what happens is that the tongue may fall in the back of the throat, and or other things may happen, and you're not able to breathe. And your blood oxygen level, among other things, your blood oxygen level will fall below 80% in the night while sleeping. You may experience waking up in the middle of the night. You may experience feeling bad when you wake up. And feeling bad when you wake up is a sign of something. Maybe not sleep apnea, but if you feel bad when you wake up, if you feel like you didn't get enough rest, I really urge you, that is something to talk to your doctor about. Because a lot of times there is some sort of solution out there. If you find yourself falling asleep during the day, if you find yourself nodding off while you're driving, especially while you're, maybe even just a little bit at stoplights, if you find you just can't stay awake enough, you might have sleep apnea.
Now, is this something that you would go to your general doctor to talk about?
Yeah, you would go to your general practitioner as a start, or you would go to you would just look up one of the many sleep doctors there in Las Vegas. It took me 2 seconds to Google sleep clinic. And they can talk to you over the phone. One of the things you can look for if you're curious is tape yourself sleeping for an hour. And I realize that sounds boring, but you can listen to that recording real quick and see if you stop sleeping or stop breathing. Another thing you can do is ask your spouse if someone does hear you sleep, and say, do I ever stop breathing? Do I ever gasp for breath? There is another kind of sleep apnea called central sleep apnea, where you won't have the snoring, and that's usually caused by other neurological condition. But that also, the idiopathic central sleep apnea can be treated. Another thing with sleep apnea is a lot of people who are overweight have sleep apnea. And this causes a vicious cycle where, yes, I would like to be thinner. Yes, I would like to be more healthy. I would love to go to the gym. But they just can't find the motivation. And so what happens is when you have the sleep apnea, over time, your concentration can become poor. You can have some word-finding difficulty. You can start to develop depression. You can start to develop anxiety. And over the years, this can get pretty severe. The sleep apnea can also lead to high blood pressure, heart attack, stroke, diabetes, heart failure, arrhythmias. So it can be a really serious problem. And I've had people who, had just been to their general practitioner, who have recently seen a psychiatrist, recently seen other doctors, recently been to a heart clinic, and I give them a simple screening. It turns out they have sleep apnea. We send them over to the sleep clinic, and after they get the sleep study and a CPAP machine, in a week, they're feeling better, they're more motivated, their concentration is better. And so this is something you can really talk to your general practitioner about, or if you think you have it, or if you sometimes, if you don't think the general practitioner is taking it that seriously, you can look online and find a sleep clinic and just ask them a few questions. And they'll be more than happy to talk with you about it and start to see that. But again, if you're finding that you're feeling badly when you wake up, just as a general rule, there's something going on there, and it should be something that you look into.
It's time for us to start wrapping it up. Will, thank you so much for joining us again. My co-host William Arendell, and your website, Will, is helpneworleans.com, correct?
It's helpneworleans.com, and if you go there and you look under the resources page, you'll find some resources for sleep apnea. That's helpneworleans.com.
Perfect. And we have Tawney Bubbles. Her website is mymomthinksimspecial.com. Of course, you can see me 6 days a week at Hypnosis Unleashed over at the Hooters Casino Hotel. Locals always get half-price tickets at the box office. Come on out and join us. Go to myvegashypnosisshow.com. Once again, that's myvegashypnosisshow.com. Join us on Facebook, and we'll talk to you next week.